Means that you get to pour out that in which God poured into you.
It's a labor of love. It's stretching yourself beyond what you think you're capable to do.
It means basically it's an opportunity to stay connected to my church family.
Someone who is passionate for caring about the lives of other people, building people up.
To bring people closer together. Again, just a lot of sharing, growing, and mentoring one another. It's a great time.
To actually nurture people and lead them in their faith.
Have some really great and stimulating conversations with the people that have engaged us in our group, in my group.
Fellowship and community is just about building the kingdom.
And it also means that you receive back everything that you poured into your group.
It's amazing though.
This has been an amazing season at Dare to Imagine Church. I'm so excited what God is doing in our iGroups. And I encourage you right now to go to d2ic.org/iGroups and to sign up. And remember, life is better together.
Hey, beloved, this is Pastor KJ. I'm so excited about tonight. I'm so excited what God is doing here. In fact, before I talk about the lesson tonight, and as you know, we're in this series dealing with white supremacy and American Christianity, I want to invite you to come to our worship services on Sunday. You can come in person, but you got to wear a mask, of course, or you can watch us online. And this series is fire. I want you to know it's off the chain as we talk about forward. I just finished the sermon series called Reposition, and God put upon my heart to share a sermon series with you called Forward as we move forward in faith and as God continues to bless us. You know, as I think about this season that we're in, there's so much racial strife and so much racial division that God has really placed upon my heart to talk about white supremacy, to talk about racism, to talk about its origins. And you know, as I've been reading and just kind of going back to my kind of Morehouse days, that's why I'm rocking the Morehouse jacket tonight, is I remember being a student in Morehouse and how my professors, they began to really challenge our notions and challenge our understanding of really Christianity and really understanding its origins here, not just in America, but to be quite honest with you, how Christianity was well established long before it landed here in America, and how Christianity was established long before it even went to Europe. I mean, that's a whole Bible study by itself. I mean, I wish I had some time tonight to kind of deal with it, and maybe at some point I will, so that you can understand how Christianity had its deep roots there in Africa. But tonight, I really want to talk about Christianity. I want to talk about white supremacy and really the legacy of white supremacy and how white supremacy has connected itself to American Christianity. Because when you look at America, at the heart of this country, we are a Christian country. But over the years, some things have happened to our understanding of the Christian faith. And people now, in my opinion, and I'm going to make this argument tonight, is that what they have done is really, they claim to be Christians, but they really are white supremacists. And that's a thesis that you will not hear probably anywhere else. But tonight I'm going to really delve into it. So I want you to go ahead and start watch parties. I want you to go ahead and share with others right now. I want you to invite people to be a part of this conversation, because I really believe that if we are going to really address the issues that are impacting America, that we have to deal with the issues of race. We have to deal with the issues of white supremacy, because those issues, if we do not deal with them, and if we don't know how they have been married together with Christianity, we will never be able to dismantle white supremacy, and we will never be able to deal with the issues that have impacted so many people, and particularly people of color and African Americans especially. So go ahead and start watch parties right now. I'm looking forward those who are being a part. I want you to comment. I want you to ask questions. I want you to like comments. I want you to say, preach, Pastor. I want you to say it, Pastor. I want you to say, Pastor, can you go a little bit deeper on this particular issue next week? And I'll be reading through the comments. I can't do it right now because I'm teaching, but I'll go back and I'll look at it and I'll add some more, because this is really a critical issue that we must deal with tonight. So let's go ahead and begin with a word of prayer. God, I ask tonight that you use me in a mighty way. Help me to speak truth and help me to enlighten others so that they might understand the fullness of your gospel and not the gospel that is through the lens of white supremacy. In your name, I pray, oh God, amen. So let's go ahead and get involved in this lesson tonight. There's one book that I've been primarily using that I want to share with you. It's called White Too Long, The Legacy of White Supremacy in American Christianity. This book is written by Robert P. Jones. It's a phenomenal book, and I really want to encourage you to go ahead and buy this book. It's a book that will help to enlighten you. In fact, you ought to get this book and share it with some of your friends on your job so that they can understand. If they claim to be a Christian, they need to understand the roots of white supremacy in American Christianity. And then also, I want to share with you another book I just came across, and this book just came out, I want to say in September. And this is by Kayati Joshi. She is a scholar there at Dickinson University, and she's written a book called White Christian Privilege. It is a powerful, powerful book, and a book that I think that you ought to read because it helps to really deal with these issues of privilege and white supremacy and how they have their roots in American Christianity. And so let's just go ahead and just delve right into it. And I want to raise this question tonight. The roots of white supremacy. I mean, what are the roots? I mean, I've been talking about this for the past 2 weeks, and I want to share with you tonight that the roots of white supremacy, it really begins with scientific racism. I've talked about that, but really there are three kind of areas of scientific racism. There is biology, in which there was the belief that black people, because of the color of their skin, that they were viewed as inferior. And then there is this understanding and scientific, or this belief that is so flawed, that is called phrenology, which deals with based upon the size of your skull. I want you all to hear this. Based upon the size of your skull would determine whether or not you were smart or not smart, or whether you will be superior or insuperior based upon the size of your skull. That's what phrenology is. And then there is this belief that deals with psychology. And psychologists, what they came up with, and you probably remember these persons, I think it's Hornstein, and the other person was Murray. They wrote this book called The Bell Curve a few years ago, and they tried to make the argument that black people's IQ is lower than white people's IQ, therefore that's why they don't do well on tests. Now again, these are the scientific racism theories that are out there: biology, phrenology, and psychology. And then there's another kind of root of white supremacy that has to do with the theological racism. And I want to deal with this too because I talked about this last week, and there's so many scriptures that people have used, and there are really two that I want to emphasize tonight. And that is Genesis chapter 4, verses 1 through 16. And in Genesis chapter 4, it deals with the curse of what we know as Cain. Many of y'all have heard of the biblical story of Cain and Abel, and you know that this story deals with the fact that God speaks to both of them, and he tells them to look, that he wants them to come back with an offering. And when they come back with an offering, Abel's offering was received more favorably than Cain's offering. And the Bible shares with us that because Cain's offering was not received the same way that Abel's offering was received, that Cain ended up killing his brother Abel. And the Bible shares with us that because Cain killed his brother Abel, that God came back and God was looking for Abel and said, "Where is your brother Abel?" And he said that to Cain, and he said, "Am I my brother's keeper?" That's where that whole expression comes from. Am I my brother's keeper? And because God was upset with what Cain had done to his brother Abel, the Bible shares with us that the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. Now, this is the craziest thing that I want you to understand. That's why I'm sharing with you the scripture, is that white supremacists and those who are racist, they have used this scripture to sit up here and say that black people are descendants of Cain. And how they came to this is because the Bible says that Cain was marked, and so therefore, because our skin is black, that therefore what they try to make this crazy rationale is that we are black, our skin is black, that we're brown, we're black, we're dark brown, we're light brown, we're pitch black, whatever black you want to call yourself. We go the whole rainbow. But it is because we are cursed and we're descendants of Cain. That's the most foolishness that I've ever heard. But again, you have to understand in the context in which this was shared with people who were not familiar with the English language, and they were coming here from Africa to America, that was what was pounded into their heads. And so there is this theological understanding. The same thing is true as it relates to not just to Cain, but as it relates to the curse of Ham. Now, what's interesting, when you look at Genesis chapter 9, the text does not say anything about Ham. It says that Canaan was the one who was cursed. But because Canaan is the son of Ham, in this crazy kind of way, particularly white slave masters, they would try to say that we are descendants of Ham. The craziest thing in the world, but again, these are some of the rationales that were used. And so again, what are the roots of white supremacy? It really boiled down to this: who is human? I mean, that's really the question. I mean, when you think about civilization, and when you think about all of the wars, and you think about all of the conflicts that we are familiar with, and some that we're not familiar with, everything boils down to who is more valuable than somebody else. Many of you remember from the civil rights movement that there would be men who would be walking around with signs that said, "I am" what? "A man." You remember that quite clearly. You've seen the images of people marching in the civil rights movement. And that question or that statement rather, that "I am a man," really deals with who is human and who is not, or who is a man and who is not. And I'm sharing this with you because all of us, we make these judgments. We make these, I guess you can say, comments and these statements as far as who's in and who's out, who's a part of the community, who's not a part of the community. I'm a graduate of Morehouse. There are some of you who are graduates of Howard University, Temple University, other schools. Some of you who may not be a graduate of a school. And sometimes we put these labels on people because we say who's in and who's out. And one of the problems with that is that it creates these divisions that prevents us from knowing the other person and really understanding that all of us are linked together because we are human. Well, the same thing has happened in American Christianity as far as who is human and who is not human. And James Baldwin, who was a phenomenal writer. If you're not familiar with James Baldwin, then you need to get in touch with who he was, because James Baldwin was somebody who could cut you with his words. And he gave a speech. I want to say it was 1964, on the anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. And James Baldwin dealt with this question, the white problem. Now, many of us, we have heard this comment about the Negro problem, but James Baldwin dealt with the white problem. And what James Baldwin said there in 1964, and I want to read it to you tonight, is that he said, "The people who settled the country," referring to the United States of America, "had a fatal flaw." He said they could recognize a man when they saw one. He said they knew he wasn't, I mean, you can tell, they knew he wasn't anything else but a man. But since they were Christian, and since they had already decided that they had come here, referring to America, to establish a free country, James Baldwin says the only way and I want you to get this because this is important. And I want somebody to type this in the chat right now. He says, the only way to justify the role that this chattel was playing in one's life was to say that he was not a man. James Baldwin goes on and says, for if he wasn't a man, then no crime had been committed. This is the root of the present trouble. In other words, what James Baldwin is arguing here is that for white people, for them to be able to justify Jim Crowism and Jane Crowism and to justify slavery and everything else is that they did not see us, black people, and not just black people. You hear it even with Donald Trump and how he refers to those who are immigrants. But yet his wife is an immigrant, but doesn't say anything about her being an immigrant. But he's always against people who are coming from Mexico and from other places and calling countries like in Africa and Haiti and other places, calling them S-holes. It is because he does not see them as human. So therefore, if they're not human, then I can treat you any type of way. Therefore, when you look at slavery and when you look at all of the atrocities that we have gone through as a people, it is because people did not see us as human. And that's one of the great travesties of the Christian faith. And I'm pushing us tonight is that many people who have been in the dominant culture have not seen anybody else as Christian. And so therefore, they can easily sit up here and say that I believe in the death penalty because I do not see you as what? Human. That I do not see you as redeemable. And what we have to understand about Christianity, and particularly American Christianity, is that American Christianity, as I'm going to argue tonight, is deeply, deeply wedded to this understanding of white supremacy and white superiority. And that's why James Baldwin said what he said on the anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation in 1964. He says, for if he wasn't referring to black people and really all marginalized people, wasn't a man, then no crime had been committed. And that's why you saw dogs sicked on us. That's why you saw John Lewis beaten in his head. That's why you saw those little girls in Birmingham that they were bombed in that church. Is because people did it because they did not see them as human. And that's why when you think about those who are soldiers and those who are in war, they will kill people because they see you not as human. They don't see you as their brother or sister. They don't see you as their mother or father. They see you as something that is foreign, something that is strange. And Robert P. Jones, he says there, about the white problem. He says, perhaps the most powerful role white Christianity has played in the gruesome drama of slavery, lynchings, Jim Crow, and massive resistance to racial equality is to maintain an unassailable sense of religious purity that protects white racial innocence. That's what Robert P. Jones argues in his book, White Too Long. And it's important because when you think about religion and when you think about white Christianity, one of the things that it has done is that it has used this kind of purity that because I'm white, that I'm better than you. And because I am who I am, therefore I'm innocent. That's why Donald Trump can say that he could kill somebody on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. It's because of that purity. It is because of this racial innocence that I can do no wrong. And I want to talk about tonight the roots of this religious purity and white supremacy, because they are connected together. When you understand how white people have thought and how they have developed this flawed understanding, it has been deeply tied to religious purity and to white supremacy. Again, I want to encourage you to get Kayati Joshi's book, White Christian Privilege, because she deals with this in a very powerful way. She is of Indian heritage, but she looks at it not from a Christian lens, although she teaches in religion at Dickinson University, but she looks at it as from the lens of understanding like how it feels for her as a woman who lives here in America, but yet who is not a part of the Christian faith. I know for some of y'all, you think that everybody has to be Christian. Look, I'm a Christian. I'm always going to be a Christian. I'm never not going to be a Christian. But we live in America. We live in a democracy. We live where there is a plurality of different religions and faiths. It doesn't matter if you're Muslim or if you're Hindu or if you're Sikh or if you're Jewish or whatever you are. What I know for sure is that we are all God's children. Can somebody say that right there in the chat? That we're all God's children. And just because I believe in Jesus Christ, that does not mean I have to diminish you. That does not mean I have to talk down to you. And what disturbs me the most in America, and particularly in our politics, is the fact that we don't have a diversity of views in our political environment and even on the Supreme Court. Now, this is not in my notes, but I got to deal with this. I want you to do research. I want you to go and do research on all the people who are on the Supreme Court, and it will blow your mind. And I particularly want you to understand and look at and research who on the Supreme Court is Catholic, who on the Supreme Court is Jewish, who on the Supreme Court is Protestant. And I can go ahead and tell you, there's nobody on the Supreme Court who's Muslim. And when you look at the nominations, even right now that are taking place with Amy Coney, is that the diversity on the court is not there. I mean, I don't even know how many Protestants are there. Most of the people who are on the Supreme Court right now are of Catholic religion or denomination. And I'm sharing this with you because you have to understand the seeds of this. And as I talk about it tonight, when I talk about this papal bull that came out that really led to the really colonization of African countries, it was because the Catholic Church sanctioned it. And so when you look, the majority of the Supreme Court has people who are Catholic on the Supreme Court, and that there's not a diversity of views. Forget color. I'm just talking about religion. And that's why you have to know your history and know how all of this ties back. And so when you look at the Supreme Court and the fact that many people are of one particular denomination, religion, it has to do with how this country was founded. I'm going to share with you tonight. I mean, we're going tonight because you really have to understand these origins. And so white privilege, as Kayati Joshi, as she lays out in her book, she says, white Christian supremacy in America is the product of centuries-long project in which the notion of white racial superiority and Christian religious superiority have augmented and magnified each other. In other words, when we talk about white racial superiority and Christian religious superiority, that they go hand in hand. And one of the arguments that she also makes in her book is that she says white Christian supremacy is an ideology that developed before, I want you to get this, before white Christian supremacy, it was an ideology that developed before the European age of discovery. Now, does anybody know what the European age of discovery? I'm still going to come back to this quote. And matter of fact, if you have not downloaded our church's app, this is just a little plea, and they're going to put it right there on the screen. Make sure you download our app at D2I Church app. Text that to 77977. And my notes for tonight are right there on the app, so you can get this PowerPoint and you can be following along with me right now, and you can watch it even later, and then you can share it with your family and with your friends this lesson tonight. But the age of discovery, this was this period in which primarily those who were in Europe were exploring other parts of the world. And I'm not sure if you've traveled. I'm not sure if you've been to Europe, or if you've been to Italy, if you've been to England, London, if you've been to Spain, if you've been to the Netherlands. I mean, when you're over in Europe, literally you can get to all these places in a very short period of time. When you look at the United States of America, while it's big, the United States is not as big as Africa is. The United States is not as big as Asia is. China is, even Russia is. And so most of the European countries, they are small. And so there was this need really to explore to see what else was out there. And so she says here, Kayati Joshi, she says, white Christian supremacy is an ideology that developed before the European age of discovery and European colonization of Africa, Arabia, Asia, Oceania, and the Americas, born from theologies that position white Christians at the top of a global social and economic order. White Christian supremacy look for the Bible, I want you to get this now, for rationales that supported the subjugation and the genocide of indigenous peoples, black slavery, and a view of Asians as threatening, exotic, and heathen. How many of you all used to get, or you may still get, the National Geographic magazine? A few years ago, I think it was either 2015 or 2018, they apologized because the National Geographic said that they were practicing racism. This is not KJ saying it. It's not Pastor KJ saying it, Kevin Johnson saying it. It is a National Geographic magazine saying this. And why did they say this? They said this because what the National Geographic magazine was, yes, they were showing you other parts of the world, but they were showing you other parts of the world from a lens that was like, let's look at these other people. Let's look at these exotic people. Let's look at these exotic animals and these exotic cultures, which what they were really saying is that they're different than European white culture. Now, again, you can go back and look at the history of colonization. And again, this is not me saying, and I'm not being racist, I'm just telling you the truth. When you look at the Queen and when you look at how the British Empire had went and dominated so many countries and so many cultures, it boils back to what I'm talking about tonight, which deals with white supremacy, and the foundation of it is Christianity. And I know this is going to kind of ruffle your feathers, but that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to teach. I'm here to try to liberate you. I'm here so that you can begin to share with your family and friends some of the things that are at the root and the causes of why, when we talk about racism here in America, and when we talk about white supremacy, and why when you look at the Ku Klux Klan, why they had crosses, they burned people on crosses, it's because it's tied to white supremacy and white Christian privilege and white Christian supremacy. This is all what I'm trying to get you to see tonight. So I want to talk right now about Christian privilege and white supremacy. Kayati Joshi says in her book, she says, Christian privilege in the United States has always been entangled with the notion of white supremacy. Let me read it to you again. She says, Christian privilege in the United States has always with notions of white supremacy. And I want you to understand the fullness of this, because when we understand white Christian privilege and really Christian privilege and tied to white supremacy, we all are familiar with this whole notion of what? White privilege. I mean, we've heard it a lot. I mean, I think about the basketball team there in Brooklyn, Jay-Z's team. And, you know, the new coach who became the coach there, he had no prior experience. And he made a comment about how he knows that he's a beneficiary of white privilege. I remember Stephen A. Smith said no black coach would have ever been given some type of opportunity like that. But white privilege, we don't really think about it from white Christian privilege or from Christian privilege. And what Kayati Joshi makes the argument is that when you think about Christian privilege and you think about white supremacy, that the two of them are married together. And yes, I'm proud to be a Christian. I love being a Christian. I believe in the gospel. But when you look at Christianity, even right here in America, there are everything that we kind of do comes from a Christian basis. But one of the problems is that there are some people who don't go to church, who don't tithe, who don't believe in the word of God at all, but they will sit up here and say in a minute, I'm a Christian. That's why you probably will never see, and I pray that at some point we do, that you will never see a Muslim on the Supreme Court of America. Never will. You would never see a Muslim woman in garb on the Supreme Court, because this is a Christian country, and I'm for diversity. I want diversity, but I'm sharing this with you because this country, even if you're not a full believer in Christianity, they will sit up here and say, we can't have any Muslims. And I'm saying to myself, when you look at this country and the diversity of it, the Supreme Court ought to be made up of everybody. It ought to reflect the breadth of America. It ought to reflect the breadth of who we are. It ought to have black people on there and white people on there. It ought to have gays and ought to have those who are heterosexuals. We ought to have everybody on the Supreme Court. It ought to have Asians. It should not just be all white people. And again, this ties back to Christian privilege and to white supremacy. And really, when you think about the white privilege and white supremacy, you know, you got to ask these questions like, okay, since you really want to call yourself a Christian, I mean, why is it then that if you're so pro-life, then why don't you wear a mask? I mean, that's real. If you are really that pro-life, if you're really concerned about my life and you want my life, you want me to live forever, then why don't you wear a mask? Think about that. Think about that. You know, I wish this is one of those times when I wish that y'all were right here in the audience, and because then I would hear some laughs or something, so y'all can kind of give me some emojis or something like that. But seriously, think about it. You know, my friend Otis Moss III, he said, if you are pro-life, then why won't you wear a mask? It's interesting. You can't say you're pro-life and don't want to wear a mask. Let me give you another one. How can you say that you're pro-life and you believe in the death penalty? I mean, especially when you think about Christianity, it always blows my mind when evangelicals are like, I believe in the death penalty. Really? I mean, if you really want to play that with God, I mean, God should have killed all of us, but we are all alive because of what? Redemption. God gave us a second chance. The prodigal son, a second chance. But yet we got so many people who are so righteous who want to sit up here and say, I'm pro-life, so therefore I'm for the death penalty. And what about this? I'm pro-life, but yet I want to dismantle Obamacare or health care. Again, how can you sit up? Just think about this. Let me share this with you. We all know that President Trump, that he is better. And I'm not going to say he's healed or he's immune. That's what he said. I'm not going to say that. But what conservatives are not talking about is that the mono cocktail that he received was actually developed from the remains of a fetus, from a baby that had been aborted. And this is interesting because conservatives and Republicans, they will sit up here and say that they are against abortion, just like how they're trying to put Amy Coney on the Supreme Court right now, who is someone who is against abortion. I'm not saying listen, I believe in free will. You know, I'm pro-life, but I believe in free will. And I believe that people have to make decisions and they have to be responsible for their decisions, and God will hold them accountable. But one of the things I found interesting is that conservatives, they will sit up here and say that you that you should be against abortion, but yet Donald Trump is better because of a baby, an aborted fetus, and they use those remains to make a mono cocktail so that he can get the antibodies. It's the most interesting thing. But again, when you're operating in this spirit of privilege, you don't really think about other things. So what are the origins of white privilege, white Christian privilege, as I'm calling tonight? It really boils down to what is known as the papal bulls or the papal edicts. And this was around 15th century. And the papal bulls, and I want you to get this, gave, because this is really the foundation of this country. It's really how colonization started. It was because of the papal bulls. Put it right there in the chat. You have to understand the origins of this. And all you got to do is Google papal bulls right now, and trust me, you will see everything that I'm talking about. And the papal bulls gave the Portuguese monarchy and their explorers the right to claim lands they discovered for the Catholic monarchs of Portugal and Spain. Again, you don't have to take my word for it. It was the Catholic Church in Spain that basically authorized the Spanish explorers to go out and to claim lands that they discovered. And this led to a treaty between countries that any land not inhabited, quote unquote, by Christians was available to be discovered, claimed, and exploited. So when we talk about colonialism, and we talk about really the rape of Africa, and we talk about the how Europeans from Spain and later it was Britain and others, I mean, just do your history, do your reading. You will see how the church, the Christian church, how Catholicism was at the root of authorizing that you could go out and that you could explore and that you could claim land that was not yours. People who were already there. This country was built upon people, quote unquote, going to discover. That just this past week, matter of fact, Monday was what? A holiday that some people celebrate, that Columbus what? Discovered America. Again, it boils back down to the papal bulls, which during the 15th century authorized the exploration and discovering lands. And that's where we get the doctrine of what we call the Doctrine of Discovery. And you'll see this map up on the screen, the Doctrine of Discovery. So this has been going on for a long time. And that's how this country was founded. That's how Africa has been colonized and really raped of its resources. It's because of the Doctrine of Discovery. And let me just share with you what the Doctrine of Discovery is. I know y'all like, Pastor is going in tonight, because I got to help y'all understand the roots of this stuff and how white supremacy and how American Christianity are tied to all of this. The Doctrine of Discovery became the basis not of some, but of all European claims in the Americas, as well as the foundation for the United States Western expansion. Yes, this country that we love, that I love, was founded upon the Doctrine of Discovery, and the Doctrine of Discovery was authorized by the papal bulls, and the papal bulls were authorized by the Spanish, the Portuguese, their Catholic bishops. It's the truth, beloved. I'm telling you the truth. You can read it, you can research it, it's the truth. And Christianity thus permeated colonial enterprises around the world, both before and after the colonization of North America. And non-Christians were denied the rights to land, sovereignty, and self-determination enjoyed by Christians. So let me just break this down to you. So if you were a Christian, then it meant that I couldn't touch you. But if you were not a Christian, you were viewed as a savage. Y'all kind of heard that with Megan Thee Stallion. You know, you were kind of viewed as exotic. You were really viewed as not human. That's what I was talking to you about earlier. That because you're not human, then therefore I can do whatever I want to do to you. That's why our women, they were raped during slavery, because you're property. You're not human. I mean, you can just look right, and we were 3/5 of a man, 3/5 of a person. This is not me making up stuff. This is a part of American history. It's because we were not viewed as humans. And so that is in the founding of the United States of America. And then it really raises this question as I talk about the founding of the United States of America. It deals with this issue of America and white Christian supremacy. And white Christian supremacy was developed, rationalized, and spread by theologians, philosophers, and scientists. I'm going to say it again. White Christian supremacy was developed, rationalized, and spread by theologians, in other words, preachers. I'm telling you the truth. It was spread by philosophers, folk who just acted like they had all this great knowledge. And it was spread by scientists. They were the ones who kind of held the keys. And when you think about the spread, if you will, of white Christian supremacy, you really have to ask the question, okay, Pastor, I get it. Like it was spread, it was rationalized, it was developed, it was taught, all of that. But how did white supremacy become such an institution? Particularly white Christian supremacy. It's deep, y'all. I want y'all to hear this. When you look at all of the quote unquote Ivy League institutions, those universities, and some of y'all don't even know this. When you think about Columbia and you think about Harvard or Princeton or Brown University or even Morehouse College or Howard or Lincoln University right here in Pennsylvania, most of our Temple University, they were all founded by religious communities. Yes, I'm telling you the truth. That's why when you go to Temple, you see Temple Baptist, a Baptist temple at Temple University. It's not me, John Conwell, he was a preacher. I'm telling you the truth. I mean, when you look at Morehouse was founded as a Baptist institution by the American Baptist churches. I'm telling you the truth. And when you look at the universities of Harvard University, it was founded by the Puritans. Yale University, founded by the Calvinists. Princeton University, founded by the Presbyterians. Columbia University, founded by the Anglicans. And Brown University, founded by the Baptists. All of these Ivy League institutions. And I want you to see the dates that are there because, I talked about last week about the Civil War. Well, really, when you look at the origins of white Christian supremacy, it had its roots not only in colonization and with the discovery, the Doctrine of Discovery, but also in the founding of the institution. Now, this is the deep part. Harvard was founded in 1636. This United States did not become the United States until 1787. So Harvard, and you look at all of these institutions, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Columbia, Brown, they were all founded and formed at the early part, even before we had our Constitution. Because there was this notion that God gave the explorers this land that we call America. Even though there were Native Americans here, even though there were people who were already here, that God gave it to us. And in fact, the scriptures that people would use are the stories of Joshua, how Joshua fought the Battle of Jericho. Now, when you think about Joshua fighting the Battle of Jericho, the people who Joshua went to go fight as he was trying to get Canaan, there are those who are Native Americans. I'll never forget when I was in seminary and we were dealing with this whole issue of liberation theology. And those who are Native Americans, they see themselves as the Canaanites. And just like Joshua came and took over the land of Canaan, there were people who were already there, and Native Americans see themselves in the same light. I know I'm just kind of wrecking. I'm pushing y'all to so much. I mean, y'all like, oh my God. I mean, some of y'all probably like, Pastor, I don't even know if I can be a Christian. Yes, you can. Trust me. My job, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to deconstruct your whole Christian faith. I'm going to put it back together for you. But in order for you to understand this faith that we hold on to, you got to understand the pain that it's caused people. You got to understand the misery that it's caused, because sometimes we think about, what people have done to us. And what I'm trying to help you to understand is that people have used Christianity as a weapon to hurt other people. But when you read the Bible itself, and particularly when you look at Jesus Christ was not trying to hurt anybody. Jesus Christ did not kill anybody. Jesus Christ did not demean anybody. And that's why I'm a Christian, is because of Jesus. And so as I'm deconstructing our notion and our history of Christianity here in America and how it's tied to white supremacy, I want you to hold on to some keys here, because when you look at Jesus, you don't see all this stuff, but it's how people have used the Christian faith to try to advance their own agenda. And that brings me to the United States Supreme Court and white Christian supremacy. I'm tired, y'all. I ain't gonna lie. I've been up here standing talking for a long time, so I'm almost coming down. I'm about to land this plane. But the United States Supreme Court and white Christian supremacy, it was there. There was this justice on Supreme Court, Justice John Marshall, and he ended up making this argument about really white Christian supremacy. He didn't call it that, but that's basically what it boiled down to. And basically, there was something that took place, I want to say it was around, say, 1800 or so. I forget the exact date, but I'll get it to you. I'll have somebody put it there in the chat a little bit later. But basically, there was this, this case that was before the Supreme Court. And Justice John Marshall, just do a Google search on him and tie it into the Discovery, Doctrine of Discovery. And basically, he made the argument, this is the argument that Justice John Marshall made, is that the land that people were trying to acquire, that it was theirs because of the Doctrine of Discovery, and because basically they were discovering land, so therefore the land they discovered, if the people were not Christian, then therefore they could have the land. And I'm sharing this with you because this, when you look at our Supreme Court and some of the decisions that they have made, it is all tied to this understanding of white Christian supremacy and tied to white supremacy. And so, beloved, I could just keep going on and on tonight, but I hope that this has been helpful for you. I hope that this has been a blessing to you. I hope that you have learned some more tonight. And part of my job I see as pastor, yes, I preach Jesus. Yes, I love the Lord. Yes, I believe in the Holy Spirit. But you need to really understand why you believe what you believe. And part of what I'm trying to do during this study is to help you to understand how our faith has been misused to help to advance people's own personal agenda. And so next week, I want you to make sure you tune in. It's going to be great. I already have it kind of lined out for you. We're going to deal with how Christianity has been the conductor, meaning the facilitator, if you will, the conductor of white supremacy. Yeah, how Christianity has become the conductor of white supremacy. And so next week, I'm going to focus on really three things. How Christianity has been the protector of white supremacy, the producer or the production of white supremacy, and the proliferation of white supremacy. And when you look at, when we delve into this next week, you're going to see it even better, because I want to make the argument to you is that Christianity, at least American Christianity, has been used to protect white supremacy. It has been used to produce white supremacy, and it has been used to proliferate white supremacy. So it's going to be a great lesson next week. I pray that you tune in. I pray that you have been blessed by this message tonight. But I want you to tune in this coming Sunday. It's going to be an awesome sermon as I get ready to kick it off. I've already kicked it off, but as I continue in this series, and I'm excited about this coming Sunday's message as we get ready to hear from the Lord. And I'm going to be dealing with the subject of what to do when you are overwhelmed. We're coming from Psalm 142, verse 3. It's going to be a great sermon. God's going to be moving in a mighty way. So invite your family and friends to watch with you online. Tag them right now. If you want to come into the sanctuary, you're more than welcome to come. And, the sanctuary, I don't know, maybe I can try to get them to try to share. Go ahead and share, Max, if you don't mind. Just share, the sanctuary, what it looks like. I think it'll be great for you to be here and for you to be a part of what the Lord is doing here, but you must wear a mask. I love you much. I thank God for each and every one of you. And as we look at the history and really the legacy of white supremacy and American Christianity, I pray that this message challenges you. And I hope that you will begin to see how our faith has been misused to try to advance political agendas. Last thing I want to share with you is this, is that as I've been kind of reflecting and really thinking about this whole series, is that what God has really kind of helped me to begin to see is really those who say that they're Christians, but who are not Christians. And it found the light bulb, the light bulb finally went off for me, because I've been really trying to understand how is it that evangelicals, in particular, a lot of them are white evangelicals, and you have some black evangelicals too, but how is it that they can support this crazy man in the White House? And then as I've been refreshing my memory on white supremacy and refreshing my memory on American Christianity, I was like, oh my God, is that they're not really defending Christianity as much as they are defending white supremacy. And that's the thesis of this Bible study. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. Make sure you tune in. And please, please, please share this lesson tonight. Share with somebody else. Tag them, because we are trying to create a revolution and bring truth, speak truth to power. Love you. Until next time, come on, let's go ahead and stretch out your hands. You know how we do it here at Dare to Imagine. We know that life is better when we what? Dare to imagine. Love you, and I'll see you on Sunday.
To be an I group leader means that you get to pour out that in which God poured into you.
It's a labor of love. It's stretching yourself beyond what you think you're capable to do.
It means basically it's an opportunity to stay connected to my church family.
Someone who is passionate for caring about the lives of other people, building people up.
To bring people closer together. Again, just a lot of sharing, growing, and mentoring one another. It's a great time.
To actually nurture people and lead them in their faith.
Have some really great and stimulating conversations with the people that have engaged us in our group, in my group.
Fellowship and community is just about building the kingdom.
And it also means that you receive back everything that you've poured into your group.
It's amazing though.
This has been an amazing season at Dare to Imagine Church. I'm so excited what God is doing in our I groups. And I encourage you right now to go to d2ic.org/I groups and to sign up. And remember, life is better together.